Hi there! As of releasing this video, you have probably less than 12 hours left to do this week's boss challenge. It unlocks around level 25 upon clearing chapter 3 and drops valuable upgrade materials for your character's potentials, so make sure to use up your 3 weekly attempts before reset. I'm guessing that most of us have only unlocked the first boss, so here I want to give you a brief overview of the fight, its core mechanics and what teams work best. For anyone that's already advanced into the mid-game, with decent save data and some memory fragments, the details of this fight won't be much of a concern, but I think it's a good example to explore some of the game's mechanics, so consider this more of a practical beginner's guide. If you're close to unlocking the next difficulty, you may want to delay your attempts until your next level up, but keep in mind that daily reset is at 6 PM UTC. Since the boss is weak to void damage, you're best off using a damage dealer of that typing. Malin is an exception, since she can apply passion weakness and excels at multi-hit attacks, which is useful against this boss. I'll be showcasing 2 different setups, one using Rin as the DPS, the other using Tressa. Rinoa is also good against any boss, but they changed how her extra attacks interact with buff mechanics. Previously, she was the only character whose out of turn attacks acted like active attacks, but apparently that wasn't working as intended. Be that as it may, so long as you're able to deal weakness damage, the fight shouldn't give you too much trouble. The other team member should provide sustain or some utility like deck cycling or deck thinning. In the first phase of the fight, the boss summons adds and grants itself 2 stacks of phlegm every turn, a 70% damage reduction buff. Don't worry though, the stacks don't add up. The reduction simply remains in effect while at least 1 stack remains. Each active hit reduces the stacks by 1, so multi-hit attacks are useful in shredding the stacks quickly to get some unmitigated damage into the boss. The 70% reduction is a final damage modifier. Here you can see that Ray's skill deals 313% damage against the ad, but only 94% against the boss, which is exactly 70% less. Weakness damage is a 25% multiplicative damage increase, but the damage reduction of this boss is applied after all other damage modifications are calculated. As the skill hits, Phlegm's stack count is lowered by 1. With 1 stack left, you'll see again a 70% difference between targeting the ad versus the boss, so even if the boss keeps stacking up the buff because your hit count is too low, you won't be completely prevented from dealing damage. However, characters like Haru, that are all about dealing a single instance of high burst damage, are best avoided in this fight. On the next turn, you can see the effectiveness of multi-hit abilities. Here, both of Rin's cards deal 2 instances of damage. Since the boss has 1 stack of phlegm left, you lose less damage by starting with the ability with a lower multiplier. Now, the first instance of damage gets lowered by 70%, while the second hit deals unmitigated damage. Because such mechanics are fairly common in CZN, choosing epiphanies with multi-hit effects is often superior to single-hit counterparts. The next attack can go through completely unhindered, taking off almost 50% of the boss's remaining HP. Skipping ahead by a turn, we have again 2 double hit abilities in hand, which allows us to shred the remaining phlegm stacks and finish the boss off. In the second phase, the boss no longer summons adds and instead grants itself 2 stacks of morale each turn, which equates to a damage increase of 20% per stack. At the same time, it now receives 4 stacks of phlegm each turn. If your hit count is high enough and you manage to remove all stacks in a round, you can completely eliminate the damage reduction gimmick for the remainder of the fight. However, the transition between the phases is a bit awkward, as you don't get to draw a new hand right away. Here, the boss essentially gets to apply the 4 stacks of phlegm twice in a row, granting it a total of 9 stacks before I can act. Unless you get amazing hands consecutively, you probably won't be able to strip the boss of its defenses. Therefore, at this point, it's mostly a race against time. The boss takes little damage from your attacks, while increasing its own damage output each round. By the time I finish it off, it is at 15 stacks of morale, which equates to a 300% damage bonus. If you don't have one of the 3 5-star Void DPS, you may want to use Tressa. She's pretty much made for this fight, because her dot deals fixed damage, ignoring the damage reduction gimmick of the boss. Khalib and Amir are just here to sustain the team, while Tressa works her magic. Tressa's 0-cost Shadow Daggers are also a good way to shred phlegm, though it's not enough for the second phase of the fight. That said, since the boss maintains its active effects during the phase transition, all of Tressa's Agony stacks also remain applied. As soon as you get a good hand, which entails drawing Cursed Gouge and plenty of her daggers, you can see the beauty of dot stacking in action. If I counted correctly, the boss is at 33 agony stacks, which shreds about half of its remaining HP. Again, note that her dagger's damage is lowered from about a 200% to a 60% multiplier due to the boss's damage reduction, dealing only 39 damage, while the 50% fixed damage multiplier from agony is unmitigated, dealing 32 damage per stack. This highlights how useful Tressa and potential future dot characters will be in tackling such challenges. Even though Tressa didn't draw any cards in the following round, the remaining agony stacks finish off the boss quickly. It was only at 4 stacks of morale before its demise, showing how well suited Tressa is for the fight. If you haven't touched her yet and struggle with this boss, I suggest you build her right away. I think that should do it for this guide. I was debating whether this boss fight deserved its own video, but I thought since everyone's still new at learning the game's mechanics, it might be worth it. So let me know if you found this helpful at all, or if you beat this stage in auto and really don't care about the finer details. In any case, thank you so much for watching. See you next time.